What do you do when a guest overstays his welcome? I'm guessing you politely ask them to leave. For Thailand, Prayuth Chan-o-cha is that guest. He is the country's Prime Minister, also the face of Thai democracy. He is being accused of overstaying his term. So Thailand's top court has suspended him. It has asked the country's Prime Minister to temporarily surrender his active duties. Before we proceed any further, let's first get a better understanding of the story's main character, Prayuth Chan-o-cha. He's no ordinary Prime Minister. He is Thailand's ex-army chief. In May 2014, he staged a military coup and seized power. In August 2014, he appointed himself as the country's Prime Minister. 3 years later, he introduced a new constitution. In 2019, Chan-ocha oversaw an extremely restricted general election. He obviously retained power. Now, the Constitution of Thailand says a Prime Minister cannot stay in office for more than 8 years. It does not matter if he has a mandate. 8 years is the limit. So are Chan-ocha's 8 years over? To answer that, we must first try and answer when exactly did his term begin? Was it when he seized power in 2014? Or was it when the constitution was reintroduced in 2017? Or was it after the 2019 election? The answer varies depending on who you ask. The opposition says the Prime Minister's term began in August 2014. That was when he appointed himself the PM. And by that logic, he's supposed to leave office this month. But Prayuth Chan-o-cha does not plan to start packing so soon. So the opposition parties moved court and the judges have voted to suspend the Prime Minister. Can you call this a constitutional crisis? Perhaps you can. So what happens next? The suspension comes into effect today, which means, as per the Constitution, a caretaker Prime Minister will soon be appointed. Who will that person be? Most likely the country's Deputy Prime Minister, Pravith Wongsuwan. He is an ally of Chan-ocha and he too was part of the Thai military. Also keep in mind that the Prime Minister has been suspended, not expelled, meaning he could be back in office soon depending on which way the court rules. But didn't the court just rule to suspend him? Well, that's the catch. This suspension is not the court's verdict, technically. The court has said that it is suspending the Prime Minister until it hears the case. So there's a good chance that once the court has heard this case, it may decide in favor of the Prime Minister. And I'm saying so keeping in mind the court's history. Rarely has it gone against the government. But what about the voters? Do they want the Prime Minister gone for good? A recent poll found that 2/3 of Thai voters want Prayuth Chan-ocha to leave immediately. His leadership is being questioned, especially over the handling of the pandemic. It does not help that the Thai economy has hit a 30-year low. Even before the pandemic, Chan-ocha was not all that popular. Some of you may remember these images. They're from the pro-democracy protests in Thailand. This was in mid-2020. A lot of anger was directed towards the Prime Minister. The people wanted him to dissolve the parliament, also draft a new constitution. 2 years on, factions have emerged within his party, the PM's party. In the parliament too, there have been several no-confidence motions against the former army general. But none so far has managed to secure his exit. Now, one theory is that the party is waiting till the upcoming election. It could be scheduled as early as November this year. Analysts say Thailand's ruling party may not in fact want a shake-up so close to the election. So they will argue in court that Chan-ocha should be allowed to stay in office. The ball is now in the court of Thailand's top court. It can decide that Chan-ocha's term began only in 2017, and so he'll be allowed to remain in office till 2025. That's one possibility, and that is provided he wins the upcoming election. But what about the palace? What does the Thai monarchy want? Remember, Thailand is a constitutional monarchy. Its king is officially above politics. It is believed that his preference often influences big decisions. So will the palace support Prayuth Chan-ocha? Actually, in this case, it helps if the court expels him for good. Because if it doesn't, the protesters could be back on the streets. They could reignite democratic sentiments and once again demand an end to the constitutional monarchy of Thailand. So if the palace has a say, it would most likely say that Prayuth Chan-ocha should go. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.